Welcome to our DE Music Sessions. We just want to address a bit of anxiety that you may or may not be feeling about what's happening in Australia and how this impacts your music performances and your rehearsals leading up to your HSC practical exam. Is the big COVID that is constantly changing on a daily basis. So I want to ask that same question as our last series of podcasts on if we saw in 2020 when COVID, there were restrictions placed on the music practical exams. Obviously, social distancing was one. That is one that can be worked around. That's not really an issue. It's nothing to panic about. The second parameter was ensembles were limited to the student being marked and one accompanist and a backing track. So under a situation like that, we also want to just recognise and validate that sometimes this is a viable option for distance education students due to isolation as well, and the musicians that may be around. This can be an everyday, not just a special circumstance. So we just want to address that same question of to use a PA or not to use a PA if you are just you're the student getting marked and you're only allowed one accompanist and or a backing track with the accompanist, or just you and a backing track.
Yeah, well, it depends, as I was saying, depends on the instrument or voice of the student taking part. Obviously, if it's a voice and there needs to be some accompaniment, if it's an acoustic piano, then, or just a guitar even, then a PA might be helpful for the vocalist, but
you may not even need it.
Mightn't need it at all, depending on the strength of the vocalist. Obviously, with an electric guitarist or a bass player, they'll need some other sort of accompaniment there. But again, maybe the individual instruments amplifiers would be enough to carry the
I think
job.
that's a really good point. The individual amplifiers are probably enough in certain situations, very much so. Would this be normal reality for a guitar bass player?
Yeah, and most, if I'm doing a live gig somewhere, unless it's a bigger gig, if it's a smaller gig, we're not miking up the guitar and we're not miking up the bass guitar, and occasionally we're miking up maybe the kick drum on the drums, but a lot of it's just coming off stage, and then we're just filling in the gaps where the vocals can't reach through the level. We're filling in the gaps with the vocals coming through the PA, but everything else is trying to be at one level and then bringing it up to that level.
And I will say some of the most beautiful HSC performances I have seen for examinations are actually just a solo singer or guitarist with an acoustic instrument accompanying them with no PA. It can be just beautiful. So no reason to, once again, it links to your style, your music. You may need to rearrange your accompaniment or with your accompanist. You may need to change sections of your songs. You do not have to do the songs the same way the original artist did the song, or even in the same style even, do you? Now, what about when we're using a backing track? What are our options for amplifying that backing track so that it can be heard, not too loud, not too soft, but just right, against the soloist, which could be an instrumentalist or it could be a vocalist?
Yeah, a backing track takes away a lot of the work that you have to do to get all the levels between all the instruments done, because that's been done in a studio, hopefully professionally, and all that you have to do is get the mix of the backing track and the mix of the instrument or voice that's adding in. So Steve said previously that the person being marked is the most important person in the mix, and that's true with the backing track as well.
Yes.
So you want the individual person, if that's the vocalist, you want them above and definitely not below the backing track. At the same time, you want to be able to hear that instrument in the context of the backing track, which is the other instrument, so you don't want it too low, but it needs to sit above, definitely above. If it's the bass playing to a backing track, the bass definitely wants to sit above. Be very careful not to, because your nerves, you're feeling nervous, and you might just want to hide inside of the backing track and just play sort of back a little bit. But you want to be forward of the backing track, definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Ensure that the instrument you're playing, performing, is excluded from that backing track.
Oh, definitely.
I've seen instances of singers coming in where they're singing with Britney Spears
Yes.
on that backing track.
Yes.
You know, or the bass players playing the same lines, but you know.
And it is a requirement of your HSC music performance examination, whether it be a core performance or an elective performance, that you must not be doubled in your performance. That means another instrument can't be doubling you if you're playing to live accompaniment. And if you're in a backing track, what Steve said, yes, you need to have the layer deleted. So where do we go to find backing tracks, men?
There's lots of stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, there is. You want to be watching the quality, though, on YouTube as well. Yeah.
There's a few websites. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe
We'll put up a list.
Yeah, put up a list of some links. If you want a good quality backing track, often you've got to pay for it.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're only talking $1.99, $2.99 to get to pay.
Good value.
Yeah,
it's
which is great value.
Yep.
And what's the advantage of purchasing those ones over one that you're just downloading off YouTube?
often it's the quality. Sometimes you get a great quality one off YouTube, but often it's the quality. And then some places allow you to do your own mix of the backing track.
Yeah.
So you decide, okay, I'm doing a bass guitar exam, so I want the drums a little bit louder so that it can highlight my bass playing. And you might do it won't be like a full on mix, but you'll be able to adjust slightly each of the instruments in your mix. And those ones are often a little bit more expensive, but sometimes it's worth it. The other thing that some of them will provide is different keys. So if
very
you're
important for singers.
if you're a singer, it might provide 3 or 4 different keys for each backing track, and that's really important because if you're a vocalist, you don't want to be caught in an uncomfortable key trying to show your best performance.
Definitely. And when we're talking of playing a backing track, men, what are our options for the equipment that we're putting that through? So let's start with what not to do first. Personally, I would say, as a high school music teacher, I would say do not use your phone with its normal speaker settings, just set on speaker, to amplify your backing track, because you're losing quality of sound and it's going to be very hard to get the correct balance with your instrument, and it will also sound tinny. What else not to use?
Don't use your laptop speakers.
Yep.
Anything that sounds bad, don't use it. If it sounds bad, no.
Don't apologise for saying no, for not using bad sound.
And there's lots of the wireless boom speakers or something that will pick up the sound from your phone now.
Yes.
I can't remember what they're called.
So I think there's one behind us. Is there one behind me, Isaac, in the case up top?
There.
So the UE Mega Booms, the JBL speakers. Now also, they do range in quality. Your UE Mega Booms, your JBLs, they give quite a nice quality. They're pretty simple to take to an exam too. You want to make sure that it is charged well in advance of your accompaniment. You can play it from a phone. The examiners will ask to look at your phone. Most of the time they're asked to put your phone on airplane mode, because it is a requirement of HSC exams that you don't take a phone in to your exam. So you want to make sure that you're not going to hit the jam up of not being able to have your phone, which has got your backing track on it. So you would probably want it on a USB, on another device, on a computer, possibly even on a tablet rather than your phone, would be a good suggestion for that. What's another piece of equipment that would be even better than using one of the little portable wireless speakers now.
Well, obviously some sort of PA would be to go, whether it's one or two speakers.
Yep.
A lot of the inbuilt mixing capabilities on the back of the speakers have line-ins.
That's
what
true.
we call line-ins, where you can connect up to that speaker.
I think there's one behind us here, isn't there, Steve?
Yes, there is.
Yep. That's probably your easy with really high professional sound.
Yeah.
Isaac, there's another set of speakers behind me that
Yeah.
would also be for our people who are listening on podcast. Can you describe what
Yeah, so
they are?
we've got a couple of speakers here
Not
that are called
pointed,
studio monitors, and they're especially designed for recording in a studio to give you a really accurate representation of whatever you're recording. So if you've got a set of them, they're great. You can also use a stereo, a good quality plug-in stereo. There's not so many of those now as everything goes wireless, but good quality stereo is fine.
Yeah. And remember, what you choose to use in your HSC examination is only what they can mark on. They can't make allowances. Oh, but if they would have used a better quality speaker, we would have been so much better. Now, you don't have to use the high-end premium stuff. We're just saying avoid using the traps that are going to detract from your performance rather than enhance it. So also, if you find yourself in a pickle that you have no alternatives, get in contact with your teacher, because your teacher has contacts hopefully in your community, or the school may be able to loan stuff, or if travel parameters are acceptable, they may be able to come to your exam and actually bring suitable equipment for that role. So is there anything else that needs to be considered with sound, PAs, not to use a PA, speakers when using backing tracksmen that you can think of?
Get that level good.
Yeah, it's all about the balance. The level, the balance.
Indeed.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I would agree with that. So if you take anything out of this episode, it's all about the balance. It's not about the bass, it's about the balance.